One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it while they both get drunk.
All right, welcome to One Guy's Seen It, the only podcast where one guy has seen the movie, the other guy has not seen the movie, and the first guy is gonna try to convince the other guy to see the movie, and then that guy will probably see the movie, and they'll talk about it and say a bunch of stupid stuff while they get progressively more inebriated, because that is what we choose to do with our sentience. Maybe at the end of the show we'll give it a score on a scale of whatever to whatever. How you doing, Sumner? This is my buddy Sumner, for everybody listening for the first time.
Hi, I'm doing good.
So for all of our legions of new listeners out there, my name is Jefferson. This is my buddy Sumner. We've been buddies for way too fucking long, and we're bored with our
10 years.
Has it been that long? Holy shit!
No, I think it's been longer than that. It's been 15.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it doesn't matter how long, because we're both lonely only children, and we are each other's brothers and ex-roommates, and now you're in Japan and I'm in Texas, and this is how we're gonna connect, and it's gonna be beautiful and synergistic, and we're gonna talk about movies, baby.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Well, first we gotta kick things off with what we're drinking. What are you rocking today?
I'm drinking a sparkling sake drink, and it's all in Japanese, so I can't read it.
What would you guess it says?
It says 7% on it, so I know that it's good.
Right, that's all you really need to know. What do you think it says? What do you think the name of the drink translates to?
Liver failure, lemon sour, sake.
Liver failure, lemon sour.
Yeah,
that's got a ring to it.
Yeah, it was almost an alliteration.
Fucking awesome. All right, well, you got to kick things off. What I guess what are we talking about today?
Okay. So the movie that I picked, and I'm gonna try and see if you can guess what it is, because it's pretty much impossible, I think, but we'll see.
Well, and you fancy yourself a film buff, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty good film buff.
You're toned. You're toned at least.
I'm toned, yeah.
Maybe not. Yeah.
I go to the movie theater a couple times a week.
Nice. Now that they're open.
Beef up my repertoire.
Okay, so hit me.
Okay. So the movie stars Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle,
Time Machine.
David Arquette.
It's the Time Machine.
No, it's not the Time Machine.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Wait. Start over.
Okay. So it's Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle. I'm trying to think of what you would know him from. Did you ever see Trainspotting?
Maybe at some point, but I remember nothing.
What about 28 Weeks Later?
Fuck yeah. Yeah. Oh, is he the dad?
Yeah, he's the dad at the beginning that
I
leaves
love
the
that
kids
guy.
Yeah, and he's really it's kind of like a 180.
You sure you don't want to just talk about 28 Weeks Later? Because I could
28 Weeks Later is a good one. But you've already seen it, and I've seen it.
That's not the point of the show. That's right.
So then we got David Arquette from Eight-Legged Freaks. Jeremy Davies, who was Upham in Saving Private Ryan.
Dude, what a cast! Oh my god.
Yeah, and then Jeffrey Jones from Beetlejuice and a couple other things. He's like Ed Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay. Yeah, I got nothing.
Here, I'll give you a little bit of the plot. So, I wrote down the plot, but I didn't want to give away like what happens in the middle or what it's about too much. So this is just kind of like the intro to the movie.
Okay.
So it takes place during the Mexican-American War when Captain John Boyd receives a promotion after defeating enemy command. It is quickly discovered that he acted cowardly during the battle, and afterwards he receives a backhanded promotion to the Sierra Nevadas, where he's third in command to an island full of misfits. And that's all I'm going to give you about the movie.
That sounds fucking awesome. Wait, you said Mexican-American War?
Uh-huh. So like 1840s time frame?
which is a war that I know absolutely nothing about.
Yeah, I mean, we just fought the the Mexicans unfairly.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there were many things that were unfair about it.
So
Okay.
the
Yeah.
movie
So
is,
I absolutely have not seen this.
the movie is called Ravenous. That is the name of the film.
Ravenous. Okay. Like a ravenous,
So-
like a ravenous weasel or a ravenous
Yeah.
squirrel.
It the W works for I was gonna
The
go somewhere
W?
with that, and then I never mind.
Wait, have you already lost me? I haven't seen it.
No,
and,
damn it.
And I'm missing references already.
No, I was gonna say something and then I lost my place.
That's okay. Look, for our listeners out there, the only movie I've ever seen is Starship
Yeah, cut all this
Troopers.
out. Don't leave that in there.
Oh no, this is all going in, man. This is
God damn it.
we're buddies. Look, people want to hear this shit, man.
I don't do podcasts very much.
Yeah, for the record, this is our first podcast, and I gotta say, it sounds pretty damn good. If you ask me. But
Yeah.
okay. So give me some trivia about this movie. Why should I give a hoot?
Well, I couldn't find any trivia that didn't spoil the movie. So this is just my impressions that I wrote down, like little tidbits of what I remember about the movie. And so I wrote, it's kind of like The Shining meets Dances with Wolves, if that makes sense.
Okay, so two incredible movies.
And kind of just meshed together a little bit, but a little different. It's tonally all over the place, but deals with a lot of different themes like honor, immorality, cannibalism, and vegetarianism.
Whoa, those are some themes.
Yeah, and I consider it really good hidden gem of action horror comedy, and yeah, it's great. I watched it a couple months ago, and then my immediate thought after watching it was like, wow, Jeff would fucking love this movie. So
Action
that's why
horror
I
comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I feel like it's kind of a missed opportunity not naming it Dances with Jack Nicholson. But
Knack Jickelson.
Knack Jickelson. But yeah, dude, this sounds right up my freaking alley. When did this come out?
1999, I think.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm pulling.
Is it like kind of campy? I'm like imagining kind of campy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah, 1999. Well, it's hard to describe. So it's the guy from the Gorillaz did the music. I can't remember. Is the guitar player?
I know who you're talking about. Damon Albarn. Yeah, because this is what I thought. I thought
yeah,
the
Damon
Gorillaz-
Albarn.
Yeah, okay.
And Michael Nyman. So I don't know if that guy's also in the Gorillaz, but
What's the what is the nature of the soundtrack? That's the thing, man. Like I think people seriously undervalue and underappreciate soundtracks. Like they make or break a movie for me. Like I know I'm a musician by trade, but I mean shit, man. Like soundtracks are everything.
yeah, I agree. And I think with this movie too, it's most people either take it or leave it from the things I've heard, because it's very tonally bizarre for what's going on sometimes. Like there's a chase sequence, and it's supposed to be this really horrifying kind of thing going on, and then it's these really like plucky like banjo chords, like they're running away from like the Dukes of Hazzard or something like that.
Yes.
So there's moments like that where it's like you're like, what the fuck? But then there are times it works. So it kind of like you have to know that going in. The music's a little tongue in cheek, because a lot of people don't particularly respond to it as much.
Okay. It sounds quintessentially turn of the century movie, where like zero fucks given, every risk taken.
Oh, and there was a little bit of trivia that I learned about the director. So there was a guy originally assigned to the movie, and midway through he got fired. And I think like a good majority of the principal photography had been done. And then this other director comes in, is a woman, and she brought in a lot more like deeper themes about what was going on in the movie. So there's definitely a shift midway through the movie where it becomes about something deeper than what's going on.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this: does that add to the impact of the movie for you, or was it obvious, like a sore thumb? Like, what the fuck? Did you know that going in?
No, I didn't know anything about it, and I was pleasantly surprised. And yeah, I love. There's a campy element to it, but it's also done pretty well, I feel like.
Yeah. Okay, I'm actually really excited about this. Like, what a great fucking cast and concept for our first One Guy's Seen It. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I figured this would be good. Andy was like, my wife was very excited that I picked this as the first one.
Nice. Shout out to Andy, our producer, executive producer.
And our probably only listener.
Yeah, our executive producer and funding source, right, Andy? She's gonna fund us when we want to level up our production.
Yeah, I want a new set. I want new mics.
Man. Okay. So, but going back, when you said that there was a director change midway through and it gets way more serious, and did you say kind of existential?
Well,
like,
yeah, it's hard to explain without giving away certain plot points, but
okay,
it's it definitely draws upon a different side of that. I don't think another director would have seen. I don't. Yeah.
But did it jump out at you? Like, did it seem disconnected when there was that kind of change?
No, because I think there was definitely reshoots, because there's a beginning of the movie and there's certain, like, they set it up pretty well, I feel like.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb to me. I think they brought it together in the end pretty well. Nice.
Okay, well, any other like badass trivia about this before I go shove this one down my eye holes?
Let me see. No, I don't think so. I think that's it. Yeah, it's kind of
at this point on the Google Doc, it just says watch the movie, which I am so ready for.
Yeah, I gotta figure out a segue in between that.
No, like I'm so hyped for this, and honestly, I'm trying to think of the last thing that I saw Guy Pearce in. I feel like he was a bad guy. It was like a Western. He was like an Englishman.
Yeah.
What am I thinking of? He's like I think he's like bald in it.
Was the Rover?
No, it was like he was very evil. Maybe. Oh, you know what it was? Lawless. I rewatched Lawless recently. He's like
no eyebrows, man.
Is he the Pinkerton coming after him? I think he is.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's really just psychopathic more so than the outlaws.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite death scenes in any movie. In that when they're like on the train on the railroad or on the bridge. Yeah, I feel like it was a bridge with a tunnel, right?
Yeah,
I'm kind of remembering.
Like on the trail or on the railroad tracks.
Yeah, he was such a great fucking bad guy. You know, that reminds me. So that movie's a perfect example of this weird. I was reading this. I don't know if I talked to you about this. I was reading this article, Vice article the other day, about the shocking statistics from Netflix about how many people are watching everything with subtitles on, and how, it's like at this point 60% of viewers have subtitles on all the time, which is way higher than it's ever been. And they interviewed like a bunch of sound recording techs and people that are working on movies and film in sound, and talking about like what the issue is. Like we're not all going crazy, we're not all losing our hearing. It's like this huge combination of factors that are contributing to audio in film being so much harder to hear and understand. It's not just Christopher Nolan movies. Like they were talking about how every streaming service has its own like audio compression codec. And you can't, like, I don't know if you've ever noticed, like, if you're hopping between Disney Plus and Hulu and Netflix and whatever, like, wildly different volumes for each service. And I think it's because there's not really a standard, so every company kind of chooses their own, and it's almost impossible for sound techs to, like, get it right for every algorithm or every compression thing. I mean, with Lawless, that's kind of an extreme example. Like, really, I'm just complaining about Tom Hardy, but he's been that way in several movies. Where he just can't freaking understand. But the article was talking about was like a combination of older films when the mics weren't as small and they were just these huge boom overheads and condenser mics, and like actors would project a whole lot more and enunciate a whole lot more because you had to, because the mics sucked, and because most TV speakers at the time were all mids and highs, like you could hear way better. But now that you've got this full like stereo picture and EQ on most TVs that you can control, but all the microphones, you've got all these small lapel mics, and it's more important to directors to have like great performances than audible dialogue, that you've got all these hidden mics and shit. And so that combined with all of the compression and the algorithms and everything, and the fact that the vast majority of people are watching TV on like a smart TV with a freaking tiny speaker coming out of the, like, it's just so hard to hear shit anymore. And it's crazy. Like, that's one sad thing about the state of media consumption, I feel like, these days.
Yeah, and I think there are certain movies that definitely need to be heard on certain sound systems. Like, some movies are better in the theater and you can hear everything a lot more clearly, but when it gets compressed, and especially action movies, like where there's so much give and take between, because you're constantly turning up your TV or turning down for the action scenes and trying to turn up for dialogue scenes, and just the mixing is completely off. Yeah, it's a dance. I listen to or watch most movies with my headphones in, like on my laptop, because it's the only way I can really hear it going on and like actually pay attention to the sound effects. But it's also because my TV doesn't have a good sound system either, so that's kind of my fault. But you need a certain threshold of the sound quality when you're watching a movie, for sure, because everything is so layered and so depthful depending on what you're listening to.
Yeah, and I feel so bad for these sound designers that are working so hard that basically have no control over how people are consuming it. Or I mean, like, think about being a sound engineer for film when there were two mediums that it was being consumed on. It was like all TVs were pretty much the same, and you were either seeing a film in the theater. It's like you had two mediums to worry about. Now you have infinite devices in infinite scenarios. Anyway, it's some nerdy shit, but point is, if you're out there and you feel like over the last few years you watch everything with subtitles, don't feel ashamed. It's not just you. You're not alone.
Brought to you by the Film Preservation Society. Save film today.
Well, I'm pretty pumped about what is the name of this movie? Ravenous.
I've watched so much YouTube content since I've gotten here in Japan. I don't have a job, so I'm just sitting at home watching YouTube for 12 hours a day. I was sitting with Andy 2 days ago, and she looked at my screen time, and it was 12 and a half hours. And she's like, how is that humanly possible? I'm like, I go to the gym for an hour, and then I cook dinner, and then I sit on the couch. I have nothing else going on right now.
That's because your job is the guy who's seen it. How are you supposed to have seen it if you're not watching it?
I have seen every movie on planet Earth. I'm gonna figure out this joke thing, and I'm gonna get more jokes flying.
Oh yeah. You better. What are you doing, man? We were supposed to show up to this prepared. I am getting progressively more inebriated. This is.
I shouldn't have started with a 7%er. It's a bad idea.
Every podcast should be done with alcohol.
It just makes it better. It heightens the experience. And I had a this is like a Japanese energy drink also that I had before. They claim it's like a health drink, but it's just a Red Bull. It just wakes you up. They're like, it has B4 and B12. It literally just tastes like a Red Bull. Like, there's nothing different about it. All right. Well, anyway, let's watch this movie.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I guess this is the part of the show where the guy who has not seen it sees it.
Sees it.
And then we will return and discuss. All right, so we are back. All right, we're back. No longer are you the only guy who's seen it. I think I'm gonna kick things off here. Overall, it was outrageous.
Yeah.
Like I fucking loved it. It was so up my alley. The whole thing felt like a twisted Red Dead Redemption 2 side mission. Like it. And honestly, it felt like two movies or two acts almost, like a play. Like, you know, it's like the fantastic and supernatural shit I feel like works in period pieces like this where the history is kind of sparing and we only know so much about the period. I feel like it works. And like, honestly, man, like overall, fantastic individual performances. Like the ensemble had so much chemistry. I can't, like they had so much chemistry and I was loving all of them, then they're all dead. And it's like, it was just like this dramatic, and then this, you know, the second act is, did you really?
Yeah, I was like, keep going. I'll get to that in a second.
Okay. So it's like, yeah, so they'll have all this chemistry, then they're all dead, and then it's this dramatic horror Dracula style duel to the end.
Yeah.
I really love all the Wendigo stuff. Like I've been fascinated with the legend and interpretations in popular culture and movies and video games. So it was nice to see it here in this weird, obscure movie from 1999. And like everything about it, like the shitty film stock adds to the vibe. Like the cinematography was great. Like, man, like, and really for me, what made it, and it's funny, I said this before when we were kind of in our first section here, but the soundtrack was everything. Like it was so quirky and unnerving and suspenseful and weird, and like it added so much to the because it was like weirdly juxtaposed with what you were seeing. Like like the music a lot of times didn't fit like the nature of the scenes, but it did in a way. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. Like some of my favorite quotes, like, you know, have a walnut, Boyd, was great at the beginning. Have a walnut, Boyd. Like fucking awesome. But I gotta say though, my favorite quote is when Guy Pearce is like, he's laying in the brush hiding from who we thought was just Calhoun, who ends up being Colonel Ives. Yeah, he's like hiding from him in the brush, and he looks over at I forget who the other soldier was. Is it Reich? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Dead blonde soldier who he. Oh my God, yeah. Well, because wait, I just
remember him as Buck from Band of Brothers. That's all.
Yeah, he's just Buck. He's Buck, but like leading up to that, like you know, I love that there was this obvious kind of shift right at the confrontation scene with Calhoun where like they're on the cliffside and everything from like what the characters are doing to like the cinematography, like when Calhoun is first confronting him and he's kind of like realizing that he's this Wendigo creature, the camera cuts are hilarious. Like it goes back and forth between them over and over and over and over again. And then when he just makes the completely irrational decision to jump off of this cliff with no hope for like surviving it, and you get a full 30-second rolling down the cliff hot rod style. I loved it.
Just totally ridiculous.
Yeah, like it almost broke the fourth wall in and of itself, like just that scene.
But
it's like one, that was.
Sorry, I just wanted to interject for a second because there's that guy that I'm just gonna call him Buck because I can't remember his name, but I think Sergeant or Major Reich or whatever his name is. There's something with the way that it cuts to him falling off the hill. Like it's just like, and then he's like, there's a little cut of him falling off the hill is like oddly comedic to me. But
dude, it was hilarious. And the fact that while he's rolling, he just happens to roll perfectly over that dude's body. What was his name? I think it was Reich.
Yeah.
Was his last name.
Yeah, I think so.
But he just rolls over his body and then they get to. But the whole reason I even bring this up is like my favorite quote of the movie is because, you know, they end up together under the brush.
Yeah.
And he's laying there forever and he looks over at him and he's like, God damn you, you're dead. God damn you. He's basically like you're not gonna care if I cut you open and take your knife.
Yeah.
But just the way he delivered the line, like Guy Pearce was great in this.
Yeah. It's very stoic, Guy Pearce.
I loved it. And seriously, I feel like underappreciated, not that I have any idea what people's reaction was to this movie, but the dude, the Upham guy, what was his name?
Oh, Jeremy Davies, I think.
Yeah,
Jeremy Davies, yeah.
His little mumbling, nervous performance was awesome. It was over too soon. I loved him.
Yeah, he was kind of like, I wrote something down here. It was like the characters are kind of like archetypes for slasher movies. Like there's a stoner, the asshole, religious, innocent kid, silent protagonist, just like standard horror slasher stuff. And then, so it was like the plot moves so quickly that you expect them all to like band together to fight whatever it is, and then they're just killed unceremoniously out of nowhere, which is like
which I loved.
Yeah, it's a clever twist on what could have been like super cheesy and campy, and it is, but it's not, like, to a certain degree, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think overall, like I loved that it was so playful in its gruesome chaos.
Yeah.
And
it's really just to show how imposing Robert Carlyle's character is. He's very, he's just villainous. Like, he'll kill anyone, like, even people that you've come to enjoy, and then they're just dead in 2 seconds. He's a very imposing kind of villain.
Yeah, he was fucking great. And honestly, like, I don't know how much you can really pull from it, but the whole thing felt like a huge metaphor for the greed and selfishness of American westward expansion. I think it did a really good job of capturing that. Yeah,
I agree completely. Like that's it seems to be one of the major themes, and there's watching it a second time, there was so much more about the vegetarianism or veganism side of things, about how his victims are related to, animals in general, like how it can be seen as a metaphor for that, which is...
Wait, yeah, okay, explain this theory more to me.
So, basically, I mean, like, even in the first scene of the movie, he's, they're all around the table and they're eating the steak at the thing, at his...
oh, yeah.
His congratulatory ceremony, even though he is technically a coward, and he's gonna get sent down to Fort Spencer, I think, and
right,
and how he looks at the raw, like, oozing meat and just starts vomiting everywhere, and
the opening scene was really powerful.
Yeah,
like it was quite a pace setter.
Yeah, and even the way that the title comes on screen is just very, like, out of place and very comical. Or he just vomits and then it's just like Ravenous. Like it's really strange.
Yeah, dude, and I love it. Set the tone too, because like one thing I noticed, I haven't seen this in I feel like a really long time. Like all of the title sequence, all the titles had like sound effects. It was like whooshing, and it was very like playful over this very dark opening. It was which I feel like continued through the rest of the movie, that kind of juxtaposition.
Yeah, because even the scene that I kind of hinted at earlier about so like Robert Carlyle's character takes that turn midway through and starts chasing him, and then the banjo starts playing, and it's like this really upbeat, like strange music, and so it's like I had a bigger thought about this, but it's so I'll backtrack a bit. So when he's like turning, when they like notice that, like, there are bones in the cave, and they're like, oh, he's a Wendigo, and Jeremy Davies is going crazy. He starts digging in the dirt, which I noticed kind of like a dog, just like digging for his knife in the dirt, very animal-like. And like that shift happens so organically, which I thought was really cool. But you like see that like he kind of views them as prey and as, animals that he's going to kill. And I think that choice of music underpinning that kind of like their deaths are kind of innocuous in the grand scheme of things, and they're not taken as seriously, like killing an animal for food. Like it's a little more playful and not as serious in the way that they play it up. But that's just a the way I'm interpreting it, I think.
No, I think I think a big word there was organic. Like the whole thing felt very organic in that like you could tell it was somebody's vision. I mean, I know you said that there was a director change, but it felt like somebody's vision that they just didn't compromise on at all. I just feel like you don't see that very often anymore.
Yeah, and so I looked into it, and they weren't as far into the production. They were only 2 weeks in, and then they hired this female director who Robert Carlyle was big friends with, and she took over the production and really changed a lot of the thematic elements of the movie, which is interesting because they seem so obvious, but I think a lot of them get brought more to life because of, I think, her perception on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really want to know more about like how this even got made. Like
that's a good question. I have I don't know anything about the backstory or the if it was based on a book. I have no idea, but I kind of like.
How did you even come across this?
So I have a Criterion channel subscription, and it was just on there one day, and I'd heard things about it on movie channels, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch it, and I had no idea what it was about. And I was blown away. I'd never heard about it. It was just a cool, Western Wendigo vampire movie. I loved it.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to think of the last movie that I saw that had. It's funny. I just recently figured out how to like log into the History Channel app because like my grandpa still pays for cable, so I can mooch off of his channels. But there's like this absolutely horrible show called, it's like the Curse of Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know if you've heard about Skinwalker Ranch and all the ridiculous, weird, supernatural stuff that's supposed to have occurred there. Have you heard about it at all, Skinwalker?
No.
So I forget exactly where it is, but it's this ranch that's been passed down from family to family where just, like different owners and different people that have stayed there have experienced all these weird, spooky, supernatural things like UFO sightings and cattle mutilations and just really weird stuff that's happened on this ranch. And so, of course, American television has to take advantage of it and destroy it. But they talk a lot about Wendigos, and I was trying to remember, there was a book that I read a while back that was my first introduction to Wendigos and kind of like a sci-fi. But it's crazy, all of the fact that the vampire myth showed up in different places around the world that really had no connection to each other. Like you wonder what that primal thing is in all of us that, who knows, maybe just through a couple million years of human evolution, when people or hominids or homo whatevers had to eat each other, they would recognize like the change in psychology and of people that had done it, and it just created this legend and myth. Like I don't know, I'm really fascinated with the legend of the vampires and Wendigos, and it's all cool shit, man.
Yeah, because is Wendigo the Native American version of vampires, or is that? Yeah,
I think essentially like there's some elements of it that don't necessarily jive with your typical Transylvanian vampire. It's like there's like shape shifting involved, and but like the immortality and the needing to feed and being able to turn other Wendigos. I think at its core, the legend, there's a similar legend in almost every culture.
Is there kind of a sorry to cut you off, but
no, it's fine.
Is there like a Hispanic influence on Wendigo? Because that would be interesting to frame it during the Mexican-American War if there was something to that.
Honestly, I have no idea. I think it's particularly a Native American legend, and if I remember correctly, because who was the first character that sort of pointed out that said Wendigo? It was like Martha, right? The Native American woman who was like working in the fort.
Yeah, it was her and her brother actually.
Yeah. So it was Native American. I guess I don't know if there is a Mexican legend. I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, big fan overall. So for
that was one of the
listeners out there, we're gonna.
Oh, sorry. No, that was one of the reasons I wanted to show it to you, because I knew you knew a lot about the Wendigo, and I was like, you would definitely have some opinions about this.
Man, it was. I mean, you know, I love period piece shit, especially kind of Civil War era. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So what's okay? So do you have any other big thoughts about it? Like, how did you? So I mean, this is the second time you've seen it now.
Yeah, I came away with a lot more thoughts than I did, and there's an interesting thing about Calhoun, his character, because he has that shift from like a Jekyll and Hyde perspective. Like he's really like unassuming and charming at the beginning, and he kind of lures them down to his lair, essentially, very vampire like, and then he becomes the animal out of nowhere. And there was I was thinking about his role a lot more in this, and there was there's definitely like a devil kind of quality, but I felt like, especially towards the end when he like starts terrorizing Guy Pearce's character Boyd, there's much more of him like representing temptation to a degree, where he's just constantly pushing him and tempting him and wanting him to just give in essentially to his viewpoint, and like morality is not anything that you should worry about, just give in to what I'm presenting to you because your viewpoint is worthless. Which is why another reason why I think there's a big veganism, vegetarian viewpoint to this, because his whole thing is about there is no immorality, so killing things there's nothing wrong with it. You're just fulfilling your desire, but the desire isn't, to survive. It's about pleasure. It gives you power and it gives you motivation. So it's less about sustainability more than it is about, dominance. And so it's an interesting thing. And even there was something at the end. So there's a scene towards the end where Jeffrey Jones, he comes back from the dead halfway through.
Who was fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
His character made the movie. His lines, the writing for him was awesome.
Yeah, because that was a cool thing about him too. Is like he's kind of the moral center. He was the one that didn't judge Guy Pearce early on in the movie, and then he ends up shifting and becoming a Wendigo or whatever. And which there's another line that I thought was hilarious when the guy the drunk guy opens the door and he sees Jeffrey Jones. He's like, "Good gracious!" and then he just cuts his head off. It was so ridiculous,
very nonchalant death.
Yeah. But then he they have that scene where they're in the library and he's trying to after he's eaten the meat again, and he's like he's thrown away all his philosophy books and giving in and shutting off completely from morality, and he's like, there's no morality in his land, and
full denial.
Yeah, and then he basically just gives in and is like, take the knife, kill me. I realize that I'm wrong, essentially, which is really interesting. So I thought that was strange.
Agreed. And kind of playing more off of your point about the kind of the vegan vegetarian metaphor. I think it even speaks toward the like westward expansion metaphor and like the mentality of the pioneers that were expanding at the time, which was they couldn't use the excuse that type of carnage that was about survival. It was about power. It was about dominating. It was about Manifest Destiny was spreading God's hope for man across the country. But that's it was power.
Yeah,
it was
about becoming more powerful. Actually, I think I wrote down what I wrote down was Manifest Destiny, metaphor for America eating up all it can and becoming stronger in the process.
Yes, I mean that's what the movie was at its core, which is something that I haven't seen a whole lot of movies really tackle that. I mean, we've had some great westerns and some great kind of but it's like even I just recently watched what's the Kevin Costner Yellowstone prequel.
1883.
1883, yeah. And if you can get past everyone's perfectly beautiful white teeth, it was a pretty good Oregon Trail simulator. But
Oregon and
but
Origin
I still think
Trail.
Yeah, but I think that and you know, as proud as I am about a lot of the things about our country and our country's history, it's another piece of cinema that sort of glamorizes that westward expansion and doesn't really hit on you know, sort of an objective viewpoint. And in a weird way, this movie does that through like fantasy and horror and like it I don't know, the fact that I've never heard about this movie, I've never heard anybody talk about it, and it had such a killer cast. Speaking of which, dude, David Arquette's character. So man, like I you know, it's funny, like my first thought in his first scene, it was like, it really seemed like they were going for kind of a Forrest Gump-esque mentally challenged type of character, and it kind of went a little more Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder, because he only has a few lines at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
But then when he comes back, he's a little more level-headed after Boyd gets back to the camp.
After he kind of detoxes from his weed or peyote experience.
Yeah, after he detoxes. Yeah, I guess he was high on the local weed. That was kind of the point.
Or that was a joke that he was,
seems like
avoid the local weed and the women. And he's like,
yeah, avoid the local weed and women. It just felt like there were so many parts of the script, at least in the first like third of the movie, that were setting up and creating all these things that never really got expanded upon because the story went where it went. It just felt like a dip into someone's mind for an hour and a half.
Yeah, the first act was almost like a red herring. It was like setting up all these things and then just abandoning them immediately, which is really effective when done well like this, I think.
Yeah, it's bold. That's a bold choice. And then I have to ask you if it really felt like it was intentional, if it was a result of the change of director and whatever the fuck was going on behind the scenes.
I think it's oddly jarring too, because I think most people when they watch it are like, this seems like a weird TV movie. Like it doesn't seem right. But I think what keeps it together is just all the star power that's behind this, all these recognizable faces. And so you're like kind of going along and it's like, this just something seems weird, and then like midway through it reveals itself, and it makes more sense when you like step back and view it as a whole picture. But when you're watching it the first time and all these weird musical keys and these weird comedic moments that should be horrifying, that most directors I think would present in more a horrific way, it's like digging at something else, and I'm not entirely sure what the thing is, but it's interesting. And it keeps you captivated.
The bottom line is it keeps you captivated. It makes you feel something. Like it's rough for a movie, or it's difficult to find a movie that makes me feel something. I don't know. Like, you know, I'm not gonna talk shit about it, but you know, I bitched about Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about this. I'm really curious. So I've only heard good
part
things.
Of the vocal minority. I know. Well, and we don't have to get into it. I think there's a difference between a movie that really, really, really is trying to make you feel something, and a movie that just by the nature of how it was made and everybody involved's vision and the creator's vision, it just sort of does that inherently, which is what I felt like this movie did. Mm-hmm. Whereas like I feel like Oppenheimer really tried to make me feel something, and I just didn't.
It's like because you should kind of thing.
Yeah, and maybe that's a me problem and not a problem with the movie, but
and I'm gonna say I haven't seen it, so don't come at me. I'm not the one that said it.
This guy's seen it.
Oh yeah, we got to do an episode.
Okay.
About it.
Well, okay, so we gotta we're going over here. Okay, so final thoughts on.
Oh yeah, well wait, I wanted to. I wrote something. I was like, so. Okay, so I had an initial breakdown. Like, I probably should have told you this before, but it was like. So we did the initial thoughts, plot, characters, themes, and then do you have any theories? I don't know. I wrote theories down like I would.
Oh, I like that. Oh yeah, I guess we sort of naturally hit all of that structure. You had that written down?
Yeah, I was like, well, when we were kind of breaking for a second, I was thinking about, theories potentially, like if there's any other, but I guess that kind of ties in with themes a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like we've tackled most of it. I mean, I don't really have any theories. I feel like some of the speeches toward the end really made clear what the message of the movie was.
Yeah, I did write down the quotes at the beginning of the movie, which I thought were interesting.
Okay.
You can cut this in at the beginning of the thing, because I should have led with this, I think. But
Nah, come on, we're rolling.
So the movie opens up with a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. He that fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And then the quote right after that, which is accompanied by a strange sound effect of like, Pshoo! Is just Eat Me by Anonymous, which is kind of strange.
Whoa. Wait, that was the name of the sound effect?
No, it's just what it sounded like when I heard it at the beginning. Because it was like the first quote happens and it kind of fades in. And then the second quote just kind of just appears, I think. Or it just goes with this strange sound effect underneath it. So it like comes off
trippy,
like, kind of strangely goofy at the beginning. But it's like the perfect
you know what?
juxtaposition.
There were so many moments. There were so many moments like that. Like my favorite line in the whole movie was when Colonel Ives, we've now discovered is Colonel Ives, he's like looking. He's like standing on the rampart and he's looking at the general that's coming when they're waiting on them to eat them, and he's looking at him and he's like, breakfast, lunch, reinforcements. Like what a line. Like what? But it just, that's the camp, right? Like you have all this heavy weird shit, and then there's these moments of camp that keep it playful. Yeah. And the score was awesome. I know we touched on it a little bit, but the score made the movie for me.
Yeah, there was something interesting about that too, because when we broke for a minute after we watched it, and I was curious, so I listened to some early Gorillaz music, just to like get a sense of what the band was, because I'm not too familiar with their stuff. But there was their second album, which was a list of B-sides from their first record. It was called G-Sides was the name of the album. But there are two songs in there that just sound like they built upon stuff that, what's his name from Gorillaz that you said earlier?
Oh, I already forgot.
There are two songs in there that just sound like they're straight up from they were just leftovers from Ravenous, which I thought was strange. It's called The Sounder and 12D3, which I thought was really interesting. If you're out there.
Whoa. Oh, Damon Albarn. Damon Albarn was his name.
Yeah, they're very like rustic, and their acoustic guitar and just the synth work that he does with them just sounds like the score to the movie. So I think that he had some stuff left over from the movie, because they formed the band like 2 years after this movie came out. So I think he was experimenting a lot with a lot of different sounds. So.
Oh, bizarre. I didn't know that. So this was pre-Gorillaz.
Yeah, right before Gorillaz came out, which I thought was interesting. So I think he was working through a lot of like soundscape ideas, which makes it more entertaining, honestly, to me, because he's playing with a lot of different thematic ideas musically.
That's fucking hilarious. It makes me wonder if like backstage after the band started blowing up, he like gets new fans or friends or famous people backstage, and he's like, "Hey, look at this movie I did."
Yeah.
And they're like,
"Whoa,
what the fuck?"
That's fucking. We should make a band based off of that movie.
Yeah.
So I wrote down some quotes, some of my favorite quotes that he had, and I thought the most telling for my theory that it's about veganism or vegetarianism, which is not an original thought. I've read some things and I've watched some reviews, and there's a lot of people that make this argument, and there's a strong community that advocates for there's like a queer element to the movie about Boyd and Calhoun, or Ives' character, and I think I get it on a surface level degree, that there's some like predator prey tension like given to your desires, like you're trying to fight like who you are. But honestly, watching it this time, I didn't see it as much as I did the first time, because there's definitely like an undertone of something like weirdly intimate between them. But I think it's just that he's trying to tempt him and make him break his moral code. He's kind of like a Joker to his Batman kind of thing.
Yeah, I get that. Maybe there's just something inherently and underlyingly sexual about wanting to eat each other.
Yeah, and there was something I was reading too. It was like, yeah, vampirism or in popular culture was built around the idea of and just that, like teeth going into soft flesh or something along those lines. But I don't know. I didn't see.
Yeah, it's hot, man.
Yeah, it's very hot. Yeah, but I personally didn't see it as much this time. But I can. But apparently the director and the actors there was some of that was intentional, that theme. So I mean, maybe there's more to it than I think, but I don't know.
That's cool. I mean, so how was this received? I mean, I didn't look at anything. Like, what was the public's reaction to this thing?
We can look that up right now.
Oh yes.
Here, let's see. Let's just go basic Ravenous reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. The epicenter of all critical thought, apparently.
Yes, the people's thoughts. The people's thoughts.
Okay, so it's got a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is shockingly low. I would have not expected that.
It's I would call it a niche piece.
Cannibal horror? Oh, I missed like a huge part. The first thing I was going to lead with is that the story that Calhoun tells at the beginning of the movie about him being stranded and then they slowly start eating each other is really reminiscent of the Donner Party, which took place in the Sierra Nevadas, where the movie's the location is of the movie. So I think it's
cool.
It's an intentional point about it, referencing the Donner Party if they had become Wendigos.
Wow. Okay, so based on a true story.
Yeah. It's confirmed based on a true story. So the critical consensus...
That's pretty cool, though.
The critical consensus of Ravenous is Ravenous tries bringing cannibal horror into an Old West setting, ending up with an uneven blend that will fail to satisfy most fans of either genre. I disagree completely.
Yeah, and it's tough. Oh, man. It's tough to review older movies, right? Because I feel like so much of the public sentiment is based on like the culture at the time and what people were collectively going through and experiencing at the time, what other movies were like at the time. So like to me, in the age of Netflix and horse shit, like this was refreshing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, because
I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, because in '99, like, I think the big movies were American Beauty, which I think won Best Picture that year, and then Fight Club came out that year. And then,
man, so everything was trippy in '99.
Yeah, it was all about
everybody was taking risks.
Yeah, like Taking Down the Man, like Office Space, I think came out that year. There was a big like thing about like fighting back against the man in a corporate, small kind of environment. That was a big theme. Like I think Matrix came out that year, so this was totally on the opposite spectrum of what most people were digesting at that time, which is like rebel against your corporate overlords. Like this didn't fit into that narrative at all.
Yeah, so you gotta take the because okay, so let me ask you this. I mean, are critics reviews, they're still online for a lot of movies. They're generally from around the time the movie was released, right?
Yeah, they're not. There are a couple of retrospective ones thrown in there, but mostly it's just about the general perspective at the time. So it's pretty split. It's like in the middle. Like either people loved it or people didn't love it. And I think it
definitely seems like a type of movie that would be like a cult classic now. Yeah,
and I think it's gotten that status recently in the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. People have reevaluated and have appreciated its themes and its thematic daringness, and it's also goofy campiness as well. It's a good mixture of both dealing with heavy themes and also making it kind of a dark, subtle comedy at the same time.
Nice. Well, I think it's safe to say that the guy who had seen it, the one guy who'd seen it, convinced the guy who had not seen it to see it, and the guy who hadn't seen it, who has now seen it, is pleased that he saw it. So I think what we should do to end things off here is so we've got a score, right? I think we should give it an average score, since we're sitting here drinking beers, or in your case, Japanese sparkling sake.
Yeah, it counts. It's like an IPA.
Right. On a scale of 0 to 5 beers, I guess
5 being the worst and 1 being
5 being the worst. How many beers do you need to enjoy this movie, Sumner?
Ooh, I would say 1.5, which would be like 4.5 on a normal scale, maybe.
Nope, don't get it confused. We have to stick to our scale.
1.5
to properly enjoy this movie. You need 1.5 beers
in a positive way. You don't need to be drunk to appreciate it.
Right, so that's right about where I was. I was gonna say 2 beers, solid 2 beers, and realistically, that's where I was, while I was watching it, which it felt just right. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 2 beers. So I don't know what that average score is. I guess 1.75 beers.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm no good at math.
I'm not. In
fact,
right now.
I'm no good at watching movies either. So I don't even know what I'm doing on this podcast. But I'm so glad that I have you.
Yeah. I'm so glad I have you too.
Well, I think this was an incredibly successful first episode. If you're listening, follow us on the social media that doesn't exist yet.
Listen to Deaf Walrus.
Listen to our passion project band Deaf Walrus. When the Deaf Walrus speaks, all must listen. And I think that's it, I think that's it for episode 1.
We did it.
Our inaugural.
Yeah.
We've done it, and you guys stick around. I guess next week we'll tackle some other weird fucking movie that Sumner's seen that I have not seen.
I already got like 3 picked, just in case you have seen it.
Oh, I'm so excited. All right, well now we need a catchy tagline to end things off. Oh, what did you say earlier? It was like just because we thought 1.75 beers was what you needed to see this movie doesn't mean any movie. Isn't good without 1 beer. What did you say?
All movies are better with at least 1 beer. So don't.
All movies, and remember, all movies are better with at least 1 beer.
One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it while they both get drunk.